My name's Arthur Edwards, MBE, FRPS. I'm a sun photographer. I've worked for the Sun for over 50 years. I was pretty average at school. When I was 16, my father died, and life took a downward spiral from there on because we lost the house that went with his job. I left school in July at 15. I was 16 in August, so that was, I got a job in a West End studio, working in the darkroom, black and white printing, and I quite liked it. And then there was a young photographer there who just started up a studio within the company, and he wanted an assistant, and he asked me if I'd be his assistant, and I did, and he taught me photography, and you know, the importance of photography is that the easy part is taking the picture. Of course, it's composing the picture, and he made me very conscious of that, and it gave me, what he gave me was confidence to do that. And then I got a job on a local paper, the East London Advertiser, and that was when I really found what I wanted to do. I then worked hard at that. And it was, as I say, East London Advertiser, and our football team was West Ham. And of course, being a Spurs supporter at the time, I quickly became a West Ham supporter because the players were in those days, the players were really nice people. I'm not saying they're not nice now, but they're untouchable now. But then you could ring one up and say, look, can I come round and do a picture? And they'd say yes. And then one day I got a call from the Sun asking me if I'd do a late night Friday shift. And once again, you know, a bit of luck came into my life because they sent me on a job up at I think it was the Strand Theatre, where there was a show running called No Sex Please, We're British. And the Wolverhampton Wanderers football team that were in town for a cup final the following day were taken to the show. And being a football fan, I knew that the star striker of Wolverhampton Wanderers was a player called John Richards, and I got John Richards with this pretty showgirl who played in the show called Vicky Richards, and it published the next day in the Sun, back page picture, quite big, with a byline underneath, Arthur Edwards. So the first shift got this real big hit, and I never really looked back then, and then I just worked and worked and worked, eventually joined the staff, and one day a reporter from the Daily Express joined the paper, James Whittaker. He's sitting there at the desk. I said, oh, hello, James. I said, I just want to say well done on that story. And oh, that's very kind of you. He said, I'm going to the polo match at Windsor this afternoon. Do you fancy coming? I said, yeah, okay. So I went down there, and there was Prince Charles playing polo, and he was about 27, 28 then, and I got a lovely picture of him at the end of the match feeding his polo pony some sugar, and I was literally from here to that camera away from him, and it published in the paper. I thought, this is really good. And then the following week I went again, and the same thing happened. And then James and I became quite good friends, and we started to go and do Charles hunting, which he didn't like, but anyway. But we did it, and we got pictures published of that. And then he started cross-country eventing, which was a 3 or 4 man team where they competed in equestrian events, you know, cross-country, jumping. And part of that team was Camilla. But they were just, you know, Camilla was married to, you know, her husband, Andrew Parker Bowles, and Prince Charles was single, and then different girlfriends came, and then the editor said, I want you to find out who Charles is getting married to. One day I went to a polo match on a Saturday. Now, we never worked on a Saturday normally because there was no paper on Sunday. It was then the news of the world. But I was kind of obsessed now of finding this girl. Anyway, I went to this polo match, and I was told he was there with a girl called Lady Diana Spencer. And I said, who's Lady Diana Spencer? He said, I don't know. He said, but she's here with him. I said, what'd she look like? He said, well, I didn't see him arrive, but she's here somewhere. So I walked around this, it was quite a small polo pitch actually, a polo event. And I saw this girl sitting there, and she was pretty, and she had a necklace with a D on it, which I thought must be Diana. So I said, excuse me, are you Lady Diana Spencer? She said, yes. I'll take your photograph, please. And she said, yes. She posed up. And I rang the office and said, who's Diana Spencer? They came back. Then they said, she's the youngest daughter of Earl Spencer, who was an equerry to the Queen. I said, well, how young is she? And he said, she's just had her 19th birthday. I thought, he's not running around with teenagers. And I sent the picture back, and I remember writing on the back of it, do not syndicate this picture, I'm not sure. And then 6 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks later, I was driving along the River Dee up in Balmoral to the Braemar Games, and I see Prince Charles fishing, and next to him is Diana Spencer. I figured this is it, so I jumped out of the car, grabbed the camera, rushed across. She saw me, she rushed through the bushes. I managed to get a picture of her running up through the woods. Prince Charles was angry, God was he angry. He sort of threw the fishing rod down and stormed off. But I had the picture, and then the following, that was on a Saturday, and on the Sunday, we ran this story that he's in love again, and the picture I did at the polo match of Diana posing up was on the front page, and underneath was Lady Diana Spencer, all the qualities to be queen, and had a list, her father, her father was, and then I was convinced because he was hiding this girl, and then of course it was a summer. I mean, that was in September, and the following July they were married. So it was a pretty whirlwind, and that year, I remember I was on a holiday in Ireland with my family when the engagement was announced. And I left the car with my wife and the children, and I just flew back and got this picture of her leaving her flat for the last time. And then it was a summer of incredible summer. Crews were turning up from all over the world for this wedding. And well, Diana was she changed every way it all worked. She just did it her way. I mean, no member of the royal family would sit on a patient's bed and chat to them, or, oh God, I remember once in Angola, with this poor little child dying, and she's sitting there holding her arm, tears in her eyes. I mean, she was an incredible woman. And I mean, I remember going to the Middlesex Hospital where they had an HIV clinic when this was an illness that, was baffling us all. We all thought it was like a terrible illness, but when she shook hands with them and she was speaking to them like face to face like that, she almost with that one engagement, she took the stigma out of HIV, and cuddling HIV babies in Brazil. I mean, lepers in Nigeria. She was just unbelievable. So she showed that compassion beyond anywhere else I've ever seen, compassion that they just boiled over with it, and especially with children. And then Harry was the same. Harry was a superstar. He was a vital part of the royal family. I mean, countries, when the royal tour was coming, please let's have Harry, because he brought so much publicity to the country. He was just fun. And all those trips, New Zealand, Australia, all those with him he was lovely and tremendous. And as far as our readers were concerned, I thought he was their most popular member of the royal family. And he used to make mistakes, but he was forgiven because he just gave so much back. And of course, we're very lucky with the royal family because we've got this lovely William and Catherine, who obviously will take over eventually, who are really, really great. William's a great statesman. I was with him yesterday, and I watched the way with children. I mean, he asked this little girl, do you like school? She said, oh, I love school. And he asked his brother, said, do you like school? He said, I like playtime. I mean, he said, I got you sorted out then. I mean, he was really good with children. So the monarchy, this which has been going since William the Conqueror, it's in pretty good hands. With Charles, I mean, I remember the first time I spoke to him I'd photographed him leaving a polo match in a hurry, and he waved goodbye to his host, and he was in his sports car, and I noticed he had a big bald spot at the back of his head. I thought, oh my God, I photographed it. And I photographed him in profile. I didn't tell anybody. I just drove back to London, printed the prints, put them in the picture editor's drawer. And the next day, I was on another job somewhere, and every hour, every 2 hours, you had to ring in there. There was no mobile phones. And the picture editor said, look, we're going to run that picture tomorrow. Do you want a byline for it? I said, oh no. I said, I don't think I want a byline for it. Anyway, the reporter I was with was the chief reporter, and he said, look, you're crazy. That's a great picture. So I rang the picture editor back and said, yeah, I'll put my name under it. Anyway, the following Wednesday, I'm at another polo match at Windsor, and his policeman said to me, look, he's going to come and have a word with you about that. Oh, God. So I braced myself, and he came up to me and said, are you the man who took the picture of my bald spot? I said, yes, sir. I said, you've been getting a bit of stick about it. He said, no. He said, not really. He said, oh, how many people watched it anyway? I said, well, we were selling about 3 million copies then. I said, about 7 or 8 million people. Oh my God, he said, that's the reason why everywhere I'm going, people are photographing the back of my head. So the conversation, that was our first conversation, and we've had many more since. And I must say, the conversations these days are pretty nice. I mean, you know, he's done, and recently we were talking on the plane, talking about it, and I said, well, you've done more for me than I could ever do for you. And when I think about it, of course he has, because the most important thing is I'm a Catholic, and when we went to Rome, I never got the pull for that, which is quite an important job, but only one person can go in, and you have to do it in beforehand, because they have to get 2 weeks' notice who's going into the Vatican. And anyway, I was standing outside, and the meeting was started, the Prince and Camilla had arrived. And all of a sudden, his press secretary came out and said, put your camera down, come with me. He walked in, and Prince Charles introduced me to Pope Francis. Holy Father, this is Arthur Edwards. And I was overwhelmed, I was actually overwhelmed, and that's the things he does. And it was in the Oval Office with President Obama, and he says to President Obama, this man's been working with me for 40 years, and, you know, and President Obama said, oh, it's awesome, you know, I mean, he's just incredible. And but the most important thing, I think, as far as the son is concerned, coming back from Canada, we were on the plane, and it was about 3 months before his 70th birthday. And I said to him, what are you going to do for your birthday? He said, what I really would like, he said, is I'd like to nice tea party with 70 people, all 70, the same age as me, he said. He said, I'd like that, I really would like that. I said, oh, that's nice. And I didn't think no more of it until a month before his birthday. I got a call from his secretary saying, the Prince wants to know what you're doing about this party. Well, I went into the editor's office. I said, look, this party is going to cost a lot of money. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And we did a story in the paper, you know, people 70, the same year as the Prince, and you work in the community in some way, or you Meals on Wheels or caring. And we had 1,000 entries, I think, and we picked 70 people and their spouses, and they came to London, and we had the party, and he was really wonderful. And he you know, as he walked in, all the 70-year-olds were standing on the stairs, all wishing him happy birthday, and it was very moving. And we had a cake for him, and he cut the cake, and then I made a welcoming speech, and he made a speech back, which was all very flattering to both of us. And of course, he went round and met all the readers, but that was such a triumph for the paper. And I think in many ways he was sort of doing it, I know he was doing it for me, and because of the support I'd given him, and in every possible way, you know, I would never put a picture in where he didn't look good in it. Same with Camilla. I mean, Camilla, she's another absolute gem. I mean, she's a absolutely fantastic person too. And so, you know, it goes on and on and on. And just recently, I was given quite a good honour. I was made given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Press Awards, and literally last Thursday, the editor gave a letter to me from the Queen, and it said, "Dear Arthur, and congratulations on this and this and this," and listed all the things, over the years, and it was really moving. So it's been a long journey, starting off from being aggressive, determined to get the picture at all costs, no matter who got upset, what didn't matter. What mattered was me, and satisfying the editor and getting this stuff published, to becoming like, I suppose, in many ways, I can't say he's number one supporter, because that's Camilla, but really like the people, like the couple so much, and he's not changed. He's the king now, so he's actually have to become a little bit more formal, but he's still the same nice person who's determined every day when he gets up to do good for others, never for himself. He's the most humble man you'll ever meet. You can never praise him. I remember once saying to him something, and he just shrugs it off. You just cannot praise him. He just feels that's his role in life, is to help others. I always found most people were nice. Most people are nice. And if you're pleasant, if you get more of a sugar than you do with vinegar. I mean, if you're nice to people, they just did it because I asked them nicely. And I remember I asked Diana that first time, "Excuse me, are you Lady Diana Spencer? May I take a picture of it?" And when I found her at the nursery, where I did this famous picture, this infamous picture or whatever, of the see-through skirt, I mean, I knocked on the nursery door. I said, "Lady Diana Spencer," where? She said, "Yeah, would you ask if she'd have a picture?" She said, ask her, and she came out. I was always kind of never aggressive, always try and do it the nice way, and I think it's paid off. Paul McCartney, I was at Kew Gardens once. He was there promoting some scarves that his wife Linda had made, and the press pack got out of hand. They started screaming at him, "Paul, look this way, Paul," and he just stormed out of the place and went off. And it was our week where the Sun was just producing colour pages in the Sun, and these scarves were really colourful, and I thought. So I waited, and he went into the Grand Pavilion, and when he came out, I said, "Excuse me, Sir Paul," I said, would you do a picture? He said, "Don't call me Macca." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Look, we've got a page tomorrow." I said, "Sorry about what happened over there." And he just, he did. He put the scarves around his neck, and he pulled a lemon out of his pocket. And he held this lemon, and he went like that. It was a wonderful picture. And I got that because I asked him nicely. When people ask me what was the best world tour I did, now I did loads. I did over 100 tours, over 100. I lost count after 100. And I went to Australia 30 times. When I went last time, when I went in October last year, the Governor General gave me a medal. So, for the amount of work I've been doing there. But it was when the Queen went to Ireland, is the story that always sticks in my mind. And I still get sort of emotional about it even today, because my wife is Irish, and I've been going to Ireland. I have a house in Ireland. I've been going to Ireland for the last 60 years. And I love the country so much, and I love the people. And it was only 4 or 5 days, but it was unbelievable. I got some really great pools on that. I got the laying the reef at the Remembrance Centre, where the IRA martyrs are buried, and Queen laid a reef, and that was very moving. And then Croke Park, where people were assassinated by the Black and Tans. Another great speech there. And then of course the state banquet, where the good and the great of Ireland were invited to that. And she opened up by speaking a little bit of Irish, and of course they stood and applauded her, and it was very moving. And Mary McAleish made a lovely speech as well, and I felt that speech, those two speeches, kind of seemed to heal all the rift between our two countries. So I felt that, that trip was just, for me, it was the most significant. It made the most difference to our two countries. And it was the first visit by a sovereign to Ireland for 100 years, and she did it, and she just got it so right. Well, I tell you, the last job I shot on film was Diana's funeral, and I was so relieved I could do it, because it was on a Saturday, which means I had all the time in the world, because we had no paper on a Sunday. On the Monday, I got 22 pictures published from that funeral. And the whole paper was devoted to it, so it wasn't such a big deal. But that was the last shot done on film, because I had a digital camera and I was pioneering it. I was the first one. Like, it was a massive thing. You had a great big box with you and everything to make it work. I knew it was the future. But film, I was so good on film. I was so comfortable on film. And don't forget, then the early digital cameras, most you could get was 3 megabytes. But I watch them now, they're of course unbelievable. The cameras now, they're just unbelievable. You don't even almost need no photographic skills whatsoever. You just got to still create the picture, which is the most important thing.